What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to another new Comic Book Day Top 10 list. Today I'm going to be ranking, reviewing all the books I picked up for January 25th, 2023's new Comic Book Day. I've got a lot of books today from various different publishers. I've got books to talk about from Marvel Comics, Boom Studios, Image, AWA, Oni Press, and IDW. As always, as I begin to talk about these books, just be aware that there's definitely going to be spoilers. I put a little spoiler tag down below in the corner to give you a heads up that that spoiler is about to happen, so if you don't want to see any of that, just skip on to the next book. And now, without further ado, let's jump into this week's top 10 list. Oh, and real quick, everyone, if you guys didn't already know, I started doing comic book breakdowns as well. So far, I've got Miles Morales Spider-Man Parts 1 and Part 2. I've got them linked down below in the description, so after this video, feel free to check those out and let me know your thoughts and theories on the series. So for this week's new Comic Book Day, I managed to grab 11 total issues, and I did end up missing out on Junkyard Joe issue number 4 from Image. I was so hyped up for this issue. I absolutely love this series. But as a lot of you already know, I don't really have a pull list at this point. I just kind of show up to my LCS and hope for the best. Well, my luck finally ran out. We didn't have any extra copies of Junkyard Joe, but I do have it on order, so at some point I am going to be reading it. If you guys did read it and you enjoyed it, let me know what you thought about it down below. Now, as far as this one issue that did not make this week's top 10 list, I did read it digitally, and I actually did really like it, but these other books were just that good. But we've got Dynamite's brand new one, Darkwing Duck, issue number 1. Darkwing Duck is back in an all-new adventure. Guys, this was awesome. I grew up on Darkwing Duck. This was just straight nostalgia. This first issue read just like an episode. All the characters are back in this one, and Darkwing Duck makes a grand entrance to his new statue unveiling. Immediately, he makes some comments about not liking cell phones, and that's going to be playing a bigger role in this issue. Megavolt is the main villain in this one, and he brainwashes everyone to try and take down Darkwing Duck. This first issue was a straight-up nostalgia trip, and it was really cool because it seems like they kept the fans in mind for this one. Now, I haven't seen the show since probably the mid-90s, so it has been a long time. I probably should have watched a couple of episodes, but I really like the artwork. The storytelling was great as well, and it was just cool to see all the characters back in a brand new adventure with Darkwing Duck. Let me know what your thoughts on this one down below. I didn't want to spoil too much of this issue for you guys, but now let's move on to the real top 10 list. All right, here we go, everyone. Kicking this top 10 list off first, we've got coming in at number 10. This is Marvel's Thor, issue number 30. This is cover A, and this is part 2 of the Legacy of Thanos arc, and this is the end of it for those of you reading this one. This one really reminded me of that 2-issue mini arc from earlier in this series when Thor realized that there was something wrong with Mjolnir, and he was trying to figure that one out. It's literally just a bridge to the next one. I think they've done a good job with it so far. Still no Donny Cates on this one. We've got the new writer, Torrin Grönbeck, and I'm excited to see what he does with it. I know I've been very back and forth on this series, but it feels as though since the new writer took over, the vibe has just been a little different, so I'm excited to see where he goes with it. So Thor is still trying to save his baby sister, Lassa, from Corvus Glaive. If you can recall, he kidnapped her in the last one. This issue is them heading deeper into the mysterious cave filled with chaotic magic from the days of the original Valkyries. We finally got a small glimpse of Thanos. Thor called it a time echo, and it showed a battle from back in the day between him and Thor's grandfather, Bor. Outside of that, we did get a lot of action fighting Draugrs in this one, and then eventually Glaive as well. Plot-wise, this arc was more story filler in my opinion, but it did a great job setting up the next one. Eventually, Thor found Corvus and his baby sister, but then on the final page, we got left on a big character introduction cliffhanger. Now, personally, I'm not too sure how I feel about that character introduction at the very end. In my opinion, with this series, there's just so much stuff that's constantly happening, so many different moving parts. But because they have so much stuff going on, I feel as though they're not really developing the story all too well, and I think that's where the series has been failing in my opinion. Artwork phenomenal. The concepts of the arcs are incredible as well, but they just keep falling short to me. I hope this next one really sets up a great story, and for those reasons, we've got coming in at number 10 this week, we've got Marvel's Thor, issue number 30. Next up, we've got coming in at number 9, this is Image's Creepshow, issue number 5. This is cover B, and this is the end of the volume for those of you reading this one, but it is going to be returning in a brand new installment. I mean, it's a fun little horror anthology series. It's nothing special, but it's not bad by any means. Now, they are coming out with a trade paperback, and that is how I 100% recommend reading this one. Every single one of these issues consists of 2 short stories, and I mean, I enjoyed them for the most part. So like the other issues, this one also has 2 short stories, and the first one is called Thirst Trap. I didn't like this one as much as the second story. This one focuses on a man who seems to have made a deal with a demon to stay young, but part of the deal, I guess, he has to constantly take selfies of himself. It's only a few pages long, so they obviously don't get into too many details. The second story is called Husk, and as far as the short stories go, this one was pretty enjoyable. A young girl is practicing etiquette for her debutante ball, but she's starting to have some problems. She doesn't feel like herself anymore, and things begin to get weird for her. So then we eventually find out that she's actually a monster when it comes time to the debutante ball. Like I said earlier, the series really isn't that bad, but it's so much better read as a trade paperback in my opinion. These stories are very short. I still think my favorite issue is the first one though. This came out around Halloween and both of those two short stories were kind of Halloween issues. I really enjoyed both of them. Now, as far as the actual series goes, if you're a big horror fan and you just really want to read this, have at it. Stick with the trade paperback in my opinion. But if you're just a casual horror fan, there's so many better horror series out there like The Silver Coin, Ice Cream Man, and tons of other ones. But for those reasons, we've got coming in at number 9 this week, we've got Images, Creepshow, issue number 5. Next up this week, we've got coming in at number 8. This is Oni Press's brand new one. We've got Rick and Morty, issue number 1. This is cover A. Well, there's been a ton of news about Justin Roiland coming out lately, and that's a conversation of itself. But today, we have got a brand new ongoing of Rick and Morty, and let me tell you guys, this is the first Rick and Morty issue that I have ever read. I'm a big fan of the show, and I asked a while back, has anyone ever read the series? What's it like? Is it comparable to the show? And a lot of the comments said it reads exactly like an episode would, and after this first issue, I couldn't agree more. This first issue really read just like an episode. Every single conversation, I read them all in the characters' voices, and it was awesome. In this one, Rick wants to go on an adventure with Morty, and Morty wants to do literally anything else. This one actually focused on Goldenfold, and he's one of my favorite characters from the show, so I was really happy to see him play a big role in this one. In another dimension, there's an army of math Goldenfolds, similarly to how Rick is with science, but Goldenfold believes science is chaos and it's time for math to rule. Basically, he wants to start a war with Rick to beat science once and for all. If you're a big Rick and Morty fan, this was a great first issue, but in my honest opinion, if you have never seen the show, if you haven't read any of the series, I really wouldn't start with this one though. It kind of jumped right into the characters and they kind of assumed that we know who a lot of these characters are. So in my opinion, this one's meant strictly for fans. If you want to become a fan, watch the show. It is a great show. And for those reasons, we've got coming in at number 8 this week, we've got Oni Press's brand new one, Rick and Morty, issue number 1. Now we've got coming in at number 7 this week, this is Images, Plush, issue number 3, this is cover B. This continues to be one of the weirdest series that I've read in quite some time. I remember starting Vinyl a little while ago. I only read, I think, the first 2 issues, but that was a really weird series as well, and I just told myself I was going to finish reading it when it all came out. Well, I noticed it's from the same writer and artist, so I'm seeing it might be a trend with all their stuff. I might have to go back and read that. So with this series, there's not much of a plot so far. 3 issues deep, they haven't really done much development outside of the cannibalistic furries, and this issue, just as weird as the other ones. Even though there's not much story to it, every time I finish reading one of these issues, it just leaves me wanting more. Our cannibalistic furries officially broke Devin out of jail, and they're headed back to their place. To be honest, that was most of the issue. Not a lot of stuff happened in this one. Devin gets a tour of the house, and we finally get to see some of the furries without the mask on. All the police stuff is going on too. The main sheriff came back and he realized that his entire police force was basically slaughtered by furries. While all that is going on, now the police are hunting down the furries and Devin. Not too much happened as far as the plot goes in my opinion, but as far as the characters go, it finally feels like we're getting introduced to some of them, mainly because the cannibal's mask came off. At the same time, Devin got himself into a little bit of a bind. I mean, if he goes back to his regular life, everything going on with his wife, the whole police force just got slaughtered, so who knows what's going to happen with him then. But on the other hand, does he stay with a group of cannibalistic furries that at some point could kill and eat him? He's got himself in a pickle. I'm excited to see where this series goes. Let me know what you think about it down below. And for those reasons, we've got coming in at number 7 this week, we've got Images, Plush, issue number 3. So next up, we've got coming in at number 6 this week. This is AWA's Year Zero, Volume 0, issue number 4. This is cover A. Now, I know I am biased towards zombie stuff, but I absolutely love this series. This is hands down my favorite one from AWA Upshot. Now, they've got a lot of bangers, but Year Zero sits at the top. The other 2 volumes are great, but I think this is my favorite volume so far. I know there's 1 issue left, and I'm excited to see how they wrap it up, but there's just something about seeing the zombie apocalypse just unfold across humanity instead of just seeing the zombie outbreak already happening. Things are starting to get absolutely crazy in this one, and the general public knows there's some sort of health emergency happening. Hospitals are overcrowded, flights are being canceled left and right, and people just don't know what to do next. I mean, that actually kind of sounds like what's going on in our lives right now, but that's a whole different topic. Like the other issues, we're still following the same set of people, and I love seeing their stories progress. In my opinion, I think this one focused on the nurse and our Russian mobster a little bit more than the other characters. Our nurse is trying to keep everything together at the hospital while the mobster is trying to stop just the spread in Russia. The writer has done such a tremendous job progressing this story while developing the characters. As I said earlier, I think this is my favorite volume of the series so far. There's just something about it being a prelude and just watching the zombie outbreak just cause this widespread panic, which reminds me, this is probably the first issue where you really truly get to see the widespread panic. People are losing their minds and they just don't know what to do. Now almost everybody is wearing masks, everybody is fighting each other, and they're just trying to survive. I love this series. Try to find those trade paperbacks for this one. And we've got coming in at number 6 this week, we've got AWA's Year Zero, Volume 0, issue number 4. Here we go, folks. We are down to the top 5 issues of the week. So coming in at number 5, we've got Image's brand new one, Inferno Girl Red, issue number 1. This is cover A. We are back with a brand new installment to the Massive Verse. And I'm not going to lie to you guys. This is the first series outside of all the Radiant stuff that I've read with the Massive Verse. And after reading this issue, I think I've been making a mistake this entire time. This was a phenomenal first issue. And if the other stuff is even remotely as good as this, I got to check it out. This was a great first issue in my opinion, and I honestly really enjoyed it. The artwork is very similar to the Radiant series, but the storytelling was awesome in this one. So we get introduced to our main character, Cassia, right off the bat, and she was accepted into the best high school in the country. On the way to the school, her mom is telling her a story about an Inferno Girl Red encounter, despite people not believing that she exists. The rest of the issue is pretty standard, and we get character introductions, development, and a plot setup. Despite not much action actually happening in this one, it was a really interesting story to me. Towards the end, something does happen to the city, and Cassie is called on to be the next Inferno Girl Red. So this first issue was an oversized book that had a $5.99 price tag on it, but I honestly felt like I got my money's worth for it. There wasn't anything that was super crazy that happened in it, like not a lot of action or fighting, but it really was the storytelling that wowed me in this one. The artwork was great as well, but throughout the entirety of this first issue, we truly did have just some solid plot and character development. Let's talk about it more down below, and for those reasons, we've got coming in at number 5 this week. We've got Image's brand new one, Inferno Girl Red, issue number 1. Now for this next one, this is one of them that I had to read digitally, but we've got coming in at number 4. This is Images, Philadelphia, issue number 27. I absolutely love this series. Rodney Barnes and his team have done such a sensational job with this series. From start to finish, every single one of these issues I absolutely love. I cannot believe that I ended up dropping it around the 8th issue and just said, I'll wait for a trade paperback for this one. Thanks to you guys, I went back to it and I have not looked back. It has turned into one of my favorite series from Image. And I always bring it up. If you are not reading Nita Hawes' Nightmare blog, absolutely pick that one up too. But this series has just turned into so much more than just vampires in Philadelphia. It has turned into just such this massive war between demons, good and evil. There's so much stuff going on. So a lot of the recent issues have been more of a single narrator telling the story, with the background being the visual representation of what's going on. And that's exactly what this issue was. Part of the story was narrated from Anansi, and then the other was done by George Washington. Anansi is talking about him losing faith in mankind. He said it would be so easy to blame all the wrong things in the world on the dark realm, but in reality, it's mankind that have done it to themselves. He proceeds to bring up how people always turn to gods for hope, but they never look within themselves to find answers. So his part of the issue was mainly questioning what purpose he serves now if people no longer care about him and the gods. George Washington, on the other hand, is still dealing with Toussaint Louverture and his guardians. While he's fighting a war, he's talking about all the things that he's done in his life and how things have changed once he got his powers. Man, this series stays killing it. I don't know how long they're going to be writing this one, but as long as they're pumping out issues, I'm going to be supporting these creators. Between this series and just the world that they're creating in Nita Hawes' Nightmare blog, they've got an entire universe, and I'm here for it. And for those reasons, we've got coming in at number 4 this week, we've got Images, Philadelphia, issue number 27. Now we've got coming in at number 3 this week, this is IDW's Dead Seas, issue number 2, this is cover B. This continues to be one of my biggest surprise reads that I've read in a very long time. There is no hype behind it. I hear almost nobody talking about it, and as far as people that I know that have read it, it is a very tiny handful, but it is such a good ghost story that I highly recommend checking out. So if you can remember from the last issue, the ghost escaped from its cell, and at the same time, some prisoners were planning a breakout. A lot was going on in that first one, and this one was kind of the same way. It focused more on getting the escaped ghost back into holding, but the inmates that planned to break out were part of the team to find the missing ghost. On top of that, the owner's daughter made an unexpected visit without her family actually knowing that she was there, so we still don't know what her motives are either. While all of this is going on too, it seems as though one of the officers made a deal to sell some of the ectoplasm as well. This is just such a fun ghost story with awesome artwork to go along with it. This series is truly jam-packed with so much stuff going on, and I think they're doing an incredible job job balancing everything. In my opinion, all the plots are flowing perfectly well without hurting the overall story. I want to hear your opinions on this one down below, and for those reasons, we've got coming in at number 3 this week. This is IDW's Dead Seas, issue number 2. Down to the final 2 issues of the week. So coming in at number 2, we've got IDW's brand new one, TMNT, The Last Ronin, Lost Years, issue number 1. This is cover A. Now, based on the other Last Ronin series, I assumed we were going to get so many delays with this one, or shipment issues, or something was going to happen. I was really surprised to see this one show up, and I'm so happy it did. I was a big fan of the Last Ronin series, and I had high expectations for this one as well, and it did not let me down. So we start off with a flashback before the present day story, and this was common throughout the last series. We get to see Grandma April with Casey and some little baby turtles that she has to train to be ninjas, so I like that. This only lasts a couple of pages before the next flashback, and this is pretty much what the rest of the issue is. This one is focusing on Michelangelo and what he had to do to survive after everyone around him was killed during battle. He was lost. He didn't know what to do, and he didn't really have any real reason to go on. So he climbed to the highest mountain he could find, and when he made it to spring, he found his piece to go on. His piece didn't last long when some thugs came through where he was staying. We ended up getting quite a bit of action in this one between the different flashbacks, but they did also do a good job setting up the rest of the story going forward. I honestly really enjoyed this first issue. I think overall they did a great job on it. Between the artwork and the storytelling, I think it was a top-notch read. Now with this one, they gave us just enough story that left me wanting more, but at the same time, there's still a mystery behind everything. I'm also a little biased towards TMNT. I'm a big Turtles fan, grew up with it, still reading the other comics. I want to hear your opinions on this one too, and for those reasons, we've got coming in at number 2 this week, we've got IDW's brand new one, TMNT, The Last Ronin, Lost Years, issue number 1. Here we go, everyone. This is it, my number 1 read of the week. We've got coming in at number 1, this is Boom Studios, Once Upon a Time at the End of the World, issue number 3. This is cover B. I cannot believe how much I like this series. It is literally an apocalyptic love story, but they are doing such a tremendous job with it between the storytelling, the character development, and the artwork. I absolutely love seeing issue after issue Maceo and Mezzi's relationship grow. This, in my opinion, is the first issue where we really get to see Mezzi finally start to enjoy Maceo's presence. Up until this point, he's mainly just been a burden to her, and she didn't really care if he lived or died. Now it's more of a she teaches him how to survive while he teaches her how to actually live. Just because the world's ending doesn't mean you still can't find joy in the small things. She even laughed at one point in the issue, and she had no idea what that sound was. As their friendship grew over the course of this issue, I really like how they kind of flipped the script, and Mezzi had to make a choice that potentially fractured everything that they've been building on. Jason Aaron is absolutely killing it on this one, and this series has honestly turned into one of my most looked forward to series every time it releases on New Comic Book Day. My one complaint, and I'm not going to be getting too in depth with it, let's talk about it more down below, is the very ending. One of the other issues had an ending similar, but it seems as though it's a little bit more futuristic, and I'm not sure I like that direction for this series. I mean, I know it is an apocalyptic story, but I don't know, that seemed very futuristic in my opinion. If you're reading the series, you're going to know what I'm talking about. Like I said, let's talk about it down below. And for those reasons, we absolutely have taken the crown this week. We've got Boom Studios, Once Upon a Time at the End of the World, issue number 3. And that is a wrap on this week's top 10 list of books, folks. I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to comment down below what your top read of the week was and which ones you think I missed out on. And thanks for watching, everyone. If you did enjoy it, be sure to hit that thumbs up button. And if you want to miss out on any of my upcoming content, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below with notifications turned on. You won't regret it. Now, I've got 2 more sitting off to the side here with more of my comic book content. Click on one of those, and I will see you on the next one.